Isamu Noguchi once said, "You can find out how to do something and then do it, or do something and find out what you did." These words are very symbolic of the way Isamu lived his life and the designs he created. Isamu's creativity spanned over many areas such as sculpture, furniture, and lighting design, all the way to architectural and stage design. Even from his early childhood, Isamu knew somewhere inside him what he was destined to become. The trials and tribulations Isamu went through as a young boy helped him to call upon both sides of his heritage and grow into the masterful designer he eventually becomes. Isamu was the son of an American woman and a Japanese man. Though he was born on the West Coast in California, Isamu spent most of his early years in Japan with his mother Leonie. It was partially because of this mixed heritage that Isamu never felt like he belonged with the other children at school in Japan, and felt most at home when he was in nature. Isamu was always very good at creating new things with his hands, transforming twigs and clay into little masterpieces. His mother recognized his creativity in her son and arranged for Isamu to shadow a local carpenter. In working with this carpenter, Isamu learned to recognize how each piece of wood has its own character, and how you can use different tools to mold and shape it into whatever it's meant to be. Isamu lived in Japan until he was 13 years old, when his mother decided to send him to live at the Interlaken School in America, as an effort to give Isamu his best chance at life. However, this effort was short-lived. Isamu came to America during a time of war, and only a short time after he arrived at the school in Indiana, it was taken over by soldiers and turned into a training camp. While other students were sent home to their families, Isamu did not have enough money to pay his way back, so he stayed with the soldiers for the remainder of the year until the Interlaken School's founder, Dr. Edward Rumley, placed him into a home in the town. With the help of Dr. Rumley, after graduating high school, Isamu traveled to Connecticut to travel under a sculptor named Guzan Borglum. Borglum was a realist sculptor, creating pieces that looked exactly like what they were based on. After months, Isamu found he could duplicate the technique quite well, but this was not where his heart was. Isamu wanted to create figures that made the observer feel a strong emotion and really got them thinking about the larger picture. With this new idea, Isamu became one of the few modern sculptors to create pieces that were wonderful without actually being like anything at all. He knew what he wanted to create, but wasn't quite sure how to make his ideas a reality. So Isamu traveled to New York. He took in as much art from as many museums as he could until he finally found Brancusi's sculpture entitled Bird in Space, and it was exactly the sort of inspiration Isamu had been looking for. Brancusi stripped down his original image to its simplest form and simplest idea to create this piece, which was actually quite complex, and an impressive piece. Isamu knew that if he really wanted to put his deepest thought and feelings into his work, he'd have to learn even more about the creation process, and so he traveled to Paris, where artists were expressing themselves freely. He stayed in Europe for 2 years, learning as much as he could about the tools and possible materials he could work with that would hopefully one day help him express his vision fully. There he learned even more from Brancusi and other practicing artists of the time. He learned how to see that each material had its own shape and feel, and how to bring out the expressions from the raw material just using the tools in his hands. Though being able to create art in this way was what Isamu had been searching for, his avant-garde approach threw many potential customers off. Instead of questioning why they don't understand it and try to figure out the puzzle, they quickly just decided they didn't like it. Still not feeling as if he belonged anywhere, Isamu continued to travel from place to place, country to country, picking up new information and techniques as he could. In 1940, during World War II, this search led him to make a decision not many would even dream of. He willingly chose to be placed in a Nishi internment camp. He chose to go because he hoped his talent as an artist might make the camps a better place to live for those who were forced to go there. Unfortunately, this choice was to be in vain because Isamu was not allowed to do anything useful while in the camps. Once he realized this, it took him months to even convince the guards to let him go free. Looking back and describing the experience after the fact, Isamu said that to this day he feels a little like a prisoner in his own country. Once free, He went once again on his worldwide journey through America, Japan, and Italy, just to name a few places, each time using a different material in his work that represented the place he was in, such as sharp metals in the cities, soft clay in the wilderness, and strong marble from the towering mountains in Italy. His forms were often simple, with natural rounded lines meant to represent growth. Now Isamu found that when a person looked at his work, instead of instantly dismissing it, they would find it to be quite mysterious. As the person continued to gaze, they would often find a great amount of energy that was coming from the forms themselves. Isamu had finally captured all the immense power of nature into his shapes, and he was able to successfully share them with the world. Isamu no longer made things to please people. He worked his own way, which people finally began to better understand, and after a while eventually started praising him for his work because it was different than anything that they'd seen before. Starting in 1964, the name Isamu Noguchi started to be said a lot more. Isamu's first real big break occurred when his work was placed into New York's Museum of Modern Art alongside many other important artists. After that, many other museums and galleries showcased Isamu's work. From there, he started to branch out and work with theater companies. He would create sculptures and props that were choreographed seamlessly into the productions that created a whole new world for dancers to move in. Noguchi was pleased that after all his hard work he was finally gaining success and recognition, but he also still felt quite lonely and disconnected from the rest of the world. So Isamu decided to become connected. He would have to start creating designs that the everyday person could bring into their home. In the late 1940s, Isamu collaborated with Knoll Furniture Company to create paper and wood lanterns to light up people's lives. These were not meant to be museum pieces, but something beautiful and thought-provoking that people could look at every day in the comfort of their own home. Not only did Isamu design light fixtures to go with people's homes, he also started designing furniture as well. Isamu worked with Knoll Furniture and Herman Miller's designers to create multiple lines of tables, chairs, and sofas, some of which are still even being produced today. There's no question that one of Isamu's most iconic pieces was his glass and wood coffee table he created with Herman Miller under designer and director George Nelson. Not all of the pieces Isamu made for mass production were as instant a success as his glass and wood coffee table. Isamu also made a sofa and companion piece out of foam rubber and wood that took customers aback at first, because of its unusual shape. The sofa looked like two river rocks stacked on top of one another. The smaller, shorter stone used for the backrest was the main reason why people questioned the design, because people did not understand why Isamu would not want to have the back cover the length of the chair instead of resting in a perplexing way he chose to. However, he didn't stop there. Isamu also created sculptural parks for children to play on, elaborate gardens for people to roam through and enjoy as they pleased. Though Isamu was now sharing his work with thousands of people and bringing them joy, he still could not find that peace and acceptance escaping him since he was a young boy. Even though his life was unhappy, Isamu continued to create his sculptures. He knew it was a way to escape from it, and even more, he knew he had a special gift that must be shared. Isamu saw an adventure waiting to be discovered in the raw materials he used. This is the one thing that could always make him excited. Though he never really felt a connection to many other people during his life, he always felt a very strong one to his work. Isamu could make things others couldn't even imagine. He gave nature a new life in a new form, one that made people see him and his designs in a new light.